Table, and I would just pick a name, and that's who got to answer the question from the iPad.
So you double click?
Oh, so double click the home button. There's going to have to be an Apple TV there. So you double click the home button and then slide.
So mine won't have it.
When you double click and you slide over, that's what you're going to see. And that blue little triangle with the display will show up when there's a device that's available for AirPlay. So I can tell it either to show on my iPad only or on the faculty studio, which is what this Apple TV is called. So, okay, so the first app that I'm going to talk about briefly is called Popplet. And basically Popplet is a mind mapping software, is what I call it, or a concept mapping software. So because I'm an education person, I simply created a mind mapping with learning theory in the center, the three major constructs of learning theory, and then learning theorists to go around it. And this is real easy. Basically, you click on the Popplet. You're not seeing that, are you? You click on the Popplet. Come on. There we go. And now I've created a new one.
It's kind of like the whole inspiration.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with that one, but this has little dots that you probably can't see around there. And when I want to add a new one, I just click one of those dots and drag, and it creates a new square. I click text and start typing. And then I can go from there. I can do things like change the color. You know, you have all kinds of options. You can add a picture. You can take a picture. You can actually write in it, I think. Yeah, you can write in it. So that's kind of a neat little thing. So thinking about beginning of the semester, you want your students to know where you're going, or think about this as a summative assessment at the end. You want to know, like, do the students really know where you've been? So put them in small groups, let them map all the concepts that you've been through. That'd be a quick little assessment. So Popplet is the name of that one. It costs $5. This is actually loaded on these iPads, so if you wanted to use this, we purchased it and put it on all 10 of the iPads that we have. And those are available for checkout, and I'll talk about checkout in just a few minutes.
Should students collaboratively work on that? And
that's right, you asked about that. So if I go back, let me go to the home, and you can't see the very top of this. I'm not sure why it's cutting it off there, but if you go online, you can do things like, you can make a new Popplet, and it appears that you have a limited number of online ones, but students can collaborate in real time. You get them onto your Popplet and they're all collaborating at once. So this is one of those collaborative apps that they can work on a live Popplet online. The other thing that I did mention on the iPad, my technology and education Popplet, I can export this, and you can't see that, but on my screen it shows up as email as a PDF, email as a JPEG, or save as a JPEG. So you do have the ability to save things, export, whatever. So if you wanted students to save that on this iPad, Dr. Montgomery is going to talk about one here in just a second where you can read PDFs. You can even mark those up, and I don't want to steal his thunder, but the app's already on here. So these are, for something like this, you could take this case and use it in your classroom right now. The other one that I'm going to talk about, I'm going to let Gwen talk about this one. It's called, what did we decide it was called?
Teacher
Kit. It used to be called TeacherPal. So Teacher Kit.
You set up your classroom, and you can have, like I did for my section, so you could have a room for each section, and then click on that, like on the room, enter the room, the door, open the door, like to enter the room. Yeah, click on open the class. Okay, and then once you're in there, oh, that might be where you were, I guess. But you take a picture of each student with your iPad. And
Don't
then
go
you
there.
you can just,
Oh, you're going in the class.
you can just press on their sweet little face and drag them around the room. And then, so when I had 32 in my class and it was really hard and I had 3 females and it was hard for me to learn their names. So I would drag it around, then I put them where they were. You can use, there's an attendance thing. Click on the attendance at the top, Jody, and I'll see what it looks like. And then once you click it, then you click once
Behavior
if
is
they're
really bad,
present. You can click twice for absent, and so, anyway. I really used it more just to kind of have their picture and where they were sitting, so I could kind of learn the name. I did use it for attendance, just to kind of.
I don't even want to go there. I'm glad Michelle's not looking at this. Michelle, we were showing a grade book in this program, so I didn't show it to them, but just for a second, then I realized what I've done.
We won't use the grade book.
Yeah, we're not using the grade book.
So that's it. It's one I heard about and just tried out and kind of thought it was fun, but.
So that's one, if you have your own iPad, that would be a great one to have. I mean, quick, easy way to take attendance, and then you transfer that into Moodle for record keeping. So really good. Really good. The last one I'm going to talk about just real quick is called ShowMe. This is great for any time you want to share something that you have done or are doing, or have students share. I'm a physics teacher, so that's where I learned about this app, was teaching physics. So I'm thinking about solving a problem, solving a math problem. So here's one that I recorded, and so you can see that I'm drawing there at the bottom, but I was just playing around with it. But you basically, whatever, it's a whiteboard that's interactive and you record what you're doing.
It's like a mini movie whiteboard.
Exactly.
Ooh.
It's a whiteboard that you can make a movie out of.
And you can talk and it records that.
I would assume, I don't know the answer to that. Let's see here. If I talk, I'm not sure if it's listening to me or not, Brent, to be honest with you. I don't know. Oh, actually, I'm not sure if it's listening to me. Yes, it
All
is.
right, good.
That's a good way to answer that question.
Does it
So,
export,
yes.
does it
So-
export to standard formats at all?
Actually, as I recall, it saves it for you. If I talk, I'm not sure. You name the ShowMe.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what happens here. That's definitely science. And then you can send these. You can post it. You can share or send. So I know we don't talk a lot about using Facebook in classes, but if for no other reason than ShowMe, you shared it, if you had a group for your class on Facebook and then you shared it on Facebook, and then they would go to the group and see that with ShowMe. So that'd be one way to quickly disseminate something to your students like that. And it's pretty simple. I'm not sure pay-wise. I don't know if I have an account, but I don't pay anything for it that I know of. Maybe I need to check my checking account. But I don't know that I'm paying anything for it. So there may be some limit to how many you can do per month or how long they last or something like that. This one has been on here for a while. So anyway, something to think about. Okay, I'm going to stop here and I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Montgomery. Let me hit my input here. And he is going to talk to us about an app called GoodReader that's useful for both you and your students, apparently. I thought it was more of a teacher thing, but I'll let you take it away.
Well, this is an app I've been using for a full academic cycle. So I used it, actually for 2 semesters. And although because I was comfortable with it, I started using it this most recent semester, and I felt really comfortable with it. I was looking for something that would allow me to do the task I hate most, which is grading a lot of essays. That's the task I hate. So grading some things, but pretty soon your students get beyond that. They have to start synthesizing. You got to evaluate, and 2 years later you're living with idiots. So you got to grade essays. The question becomes, what's the best way to do that, both for you as an instructor and for them, and also in our School of Theology and Ministry, we're going to move to a portfolio system. So students will have to retain essays and keep track of them over their tenure, so at the end they have something to show employers that they can do. They have to be graded, and so this would be a nice way for the marks of the instructor to show, really good, really bad improvement, that they can have access to that. So, what is GoodReader? There are really 3 questions I plan on answering overall for this. What is GoodReader? How can you use it for student papers? And by that I mean essays mostly. And how does it facilitate quicker turnaround and better feedback for students, with emphasis on quicker turnaround and better feedback? Because I see those as actually 2 sides. It turned out there are 2 sides of the same activity for me. Okay, well, first, what is GoodReader? It's a console for managing documents. It's just straightforward managing documents, but it manages PDFs best, and that's where I'll put most of the emphasis. And moving them out of GoodReader into GoodReader, whether from the cloud, on the web, in the network, other iPad apps, other iPads or email, it'll move anything from anywhere, essentially, is probably the best summary. It's, as you can see here, PDFs, what it works with, it can read Microsoft Word, but it's very easy to save a Microsoft Word file as a PDF, so it's almost, if you just want to look at something quickly, you can preview them, you can find files, you can manage files. Indeed, it has a very intuitive interface, but getting them out, in and out of GoodReader, anything you want to do, you can grab them off the web directly, you can just paste a URL. So for example, if you're searching for a PDF online, you see it's on Google, it says PDF, just take that URL and stick it in GoodReader and it automatically sucks it in for you, you don't have to transfer it. I've done this once just to see if it worked. You can declare your a Wi-Fi point as your iPad and just move things back and forth over wireless and it'll keep them synced. I prefer the caveman version, which is using a USB cable and plugging it in, because typically I dump maybe 5 to 20 essays on it at a time, and I just move the whole thing in there at once. Another, probably the second most common thing I do is when I'm in Gmail and I'm checking on my iPad, you just press a little email button and it'll show you the little icon that it's a PDF. You just push it, and sometimes it'll just say, do you want to open this in GoodReader, or you can just press a button and it'll open the PDF in Safari that you're looking at in GoodReader. So it's very kind of a 1-poke or 2-poke activity, and it's in GoodReader. I read almost everything now in GoodReader than I can, and you'll see why in just a moment. All right, so as I said, it has a very intuitive interface, and if you get lost, the help texts are excellent. And a couple things I'll point out here. iPad is not a file and folder operating system that you're on. GoodReader gives you the full power of a file and folder operating system. So you can build your own folders, you can put folders in folders, you can move, rename, you can send, you can link, and you can do anything you normally can imagine doing, easily, I would add, with GoodReader. So there's a side of it where you get to manage documents. Okay, you mark them as important. And so what I have found is that I'm starting to get enough books on PDF that I'm starting to put them here and take them to class. So I taught philosophy of science for the nth time. I have no idea how many times I've taught that. But I finally got the book on PDF. Now I can actually, as I'm reading, take notes on the PDF instead of having to look at notes and go through the text. It's all in one kind of nice rollable activity for me. So as books on PDF become more prevalent, it seems to me that the instructor will want to integrate their notes and their text into one engagement. It is extraordinarily easy for lazy man Brint to do this, so I assure you it is not a big deal, as you'll see in just a moment. Note also that applies to students. As students get more books, and if they come in PDF or can be exported PDF, they too can write the notes right in the text that they're reading, and it's straightforward and easy. All right, so for those of you who maybe don't work with this, we can ask, what are the markups that I'm speaking of? And so here, the markups are a robust set of markup tools that PDFs can work with: highlighting, drawing, adding sticky notes, and those are especially important in a lot of things you can do. So on this little document here, you can see I've marked out favorites. You can underline words. You can circle things. They have different kinds of underlines. So about a third of the way down, the word automatically has a little kind of spelling squiggly on it. There's all sorts of things you can do on the documents. And even you can draw, like the very top, you see a little arrow and look into this. I use that quite a bit also for reasons that will be clear in just a moment. So markups are stuff you get to add onto a document and it can be added onto a copy of that document or the original document itself. So if you have a document, you can put it on there, and then you open it up next year whenever you teach the class again, all of your marks are there. So it's good. And originally, this is what attracted me to the iPad. I had one of those little Kindle Fire things, which I still have, and I like and read on it. But it was just small enough where I felt uncomfortable reading PDFs from like JSTOR or whatever in the library. So I had a chance to get an iPad. I said, well, if nothing else, I'll use it for PDFs. Well, I didn't recognize how powerful PDFs can be if you can integrate your notes and research onto the actual document itself. And then that got me thinking, why can't I do that with student essays that are PDFs and just write over the essay and then email it back to them and they can get it? And that's where I moved from reading research and marking it up to marking up essays on student papers. And I discovered, just as it saved me a lot of time on going back and looking at my research documents, it really saved me a lot of time when I was marking up student documents. I didn't have to go to Moodle. They never became paper. I had them with me all the time, so I could, if a student ran in my office, "Have you graded my paper yet?" I said, "Well, I think so. Let me see. Oh, here's what I did. You want to go through it now, or you want to email it to you?" It just saved me time in all sorts of little ways I didn't predict. Plus, because my iPad is easier to carry around with me more often, I was more likely to spend, 10 minutes going through the student essay or finishing it. And I found I could wedge it in places that normally I'd just sit around and maybe check my phone for Facebook or something like that. So it allowed me to coordinate my time better, and it was really effortless. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is, well, you see all these marks on here. How do you place them? Is this some difficult venture? Well, no, it's not. And it plays to Bowie's favorite hobby is how do people interact with machines. And generally, you poke the middle of the PDF that you're looking at on your iPad. It's like, okay, and then it pops up the very first poke on the virgin territory PDF. It'll say, do you want to save this to this file, or do you want me to create a clone of this so you have the original all unmarked up in this one? And so then you pick it, and when you poke it and press whatever, there's a little sidebar. You see that sidebar? Now I'm going to walk over here. I don't know if it's bad. I do. But you can press any of these. So if I want to write just plain text, if I want to write a note, a pop-up note, highlighting, underlining, different kind of underlining, arrows, boxes, and erase all this. You just poke what you want, and I'll show you what that looks like when it comes up here. So that's how you start. It really is as straightforward as it seems. Now, then once you poke it, well, how is it these markups are working? Well, originally, like when I'm doing JSTOR stuff, I just highlight what I wanted, and then you'll see here, there's a little tiny note. I'd highlight, and then I'd drag that note. I'd just poke something, a note appeared, I'd drag, and then I would enter into that note why it is I have that highlighted. Highlighting is not really important unless you can remember why it is that I highlighted this, what problem does it apply to. And so a little floating bar comes up, and you got highlight, note, select. It's really easy to do. And so after I did that, you might want to go back and modify them. It's just as straightforward to go back and modify them. So a floating bar comes up, you can change the color of the marks that you did, change the highlighting. So everything, once you highlight, you press the mark, and an edit bar comes up. So you can change its color, you can change the size of the font point. You just poke, move. It's very easy to move around. It's very intuitive, and that's what I liked about it. And also, I had to do screen captures to just show you, because there's no sort of keys. It just pops up, you do, and it disappears. It's a typical kind of iPad interaction. All right, so what's useful for student essays? And that's specifically why I'm here today. What is like something I can underline problems, I can even sort of freehand it, which I never do for reasons to become immediate. But the most useful activity, I think, is the note. And this is where you've got a little yellow pop-up note. So I pressed on the side, a pop-up note, it appears, and then after that, this is where the magic happens, okay? And the magic happens on the iPad because once you put a pop-up note, you press on the iPads, I don't know, 3 for sure, 2 maybe, I'm not sure, this is a 3. You press the talkie, and you talk right into the note. And then you press the talkie, and it's over. And I have noticed in the last 2 or 3 months that Siri has become extraordinarily more accurate. And it almost picks up everything. Just like you talk to a child a little bit differently because children process language differently, you got to talk to your Siri a little differently too, but not much differently. And often I'm thinking kind of hard and talking slow anyway, and Siri loves that sort of talk. So I just kind of pace my talking, but I can run through these things pretty straightforwardly. And so I can add note after note in the paper all the way through, And this gives the student the ability to see precisely where it is, I was talking, precisely where it is that the problems are and what they see. How easy it is to send to students? I see Bowie has stiffed me, I believe. No, he didn't. It's just stiffed me on this part. You pop up on the sidebar that you touch it in the middle when you're reading it. A bottom bar pops up. You just touch the little arrow just like you normally would in Google Mail or something, forwarding, and these options come up. And you can straightforwardly email the document as you've marked it to the student. So I have them put their email address in the paper so I know right what it is. And so you got this from either email, they email it to you, you download it from Moodle by just poking it and sticking it somewhere on the iPad, and you can email the PDF. And so when they load the PDF, when they actually press these little notes, they come up in their paper precisely where it works. And so what I want to do next is show you some genuine SNU papers that I've taken some pictures of and how I've used it and what parts. And this was all done very easily, very quickly. So here for example, I demand in my own discipline they have Prim's inclusion indicators. And so that tells me kind of how their evidence is working. And so I can block them out, tell them what it is I was worried, and specifically use arrows to point what the relationships are. Here I usually use blue for comments and red for problems, so they get used to thinking not all marks are bad. And sometimes if I'm in a really good mood, there's a lot of blue, but it mixes too. So you have spelling errors. Specifically, I can type in little blanks where things are. When they get the paper back, of course, they can see these things also, and if they press on the note, whether in a PDF, then my talked text comes up. So they just press and see exactly what it is I had a problem with. So here's a blue line, something I liked here, and then they see my explanation inside of the text. You can really get elaborate here if you want to point out specifically what's happening. Like in writing style, this person kept using the same word over and over. I became irritated, so I pointed that out, that he used it over and over and over. And then typically what I've done at the end of the paper, I'll write a really long kind of how did I feel about it, what is it doing. But all I've done is I've just pressed the text, plain old text button, and start talking to Siri again, and it all pops out. So there's no typing here. It's very non-academic ease too, because we tend to speak in human ways and write in inhuman ways. And so the student, I think, has a better engagement with the professor of who they actually are.
Yeah, naturalizing epistemology comes up all the time.
Well, yeah. So anyway, what is GoodReader? Hope you can see it's a very easy way of marking things up. You can use it for student papers. Students can mark up their own papers and send it to you. They can mark up any PowerPoint PDF, anything's been saved in PDF, including a mind map. You could have them send you the mind map, mark all over it what you did and did not like, send it back to them. So this PDF is a living document.
But the student has to have the GoodReader app also?
No.
To
normal
interact with
PDF
you?
readers can read the marked up PDFs,
Okay.
so only you have to have the GoodReader app. The PDF is what carries it. PDF has the ability to be marked up. GoodReader just really does it well. And it's kind of like the Torah used to be, where you have the Jewish people writing commentaries around commentaries around commentaries. And it's very intriguing because the document takes on a kind of morphing and learning activity. So I've had real experience with it. I think I got it for $4.99, but it's up to $9.99. But they have run specials on it now and then, so if you keep your eye on it, you can get it pretty cheap.
I bought it today for $4.99.
Yeah, so they kind of go up and down. I cannot tell you how it was the best $4.99 I ever spent in terms of something useful. So I hope you'll give it a try. I was liking it after the first semester. By the second semester, I didn't want to go back because it's just a lot better than Turnitin.com is excellent for detecting plagiarism, but it's clunky for marking up student papers and tracking it. And it tends to fight back at different times, different upgrades and all this, and I just got tired of that. So it could be something where they submit to Turnitin.com as a PDF, then you download the PDFs and work with them if you decide they didn't copy it. Students can mark up their own research and send it to you to look at. PDFs are really wonderful, and GoodReader can read almost anything, including whole books, and you can mark up everything. So it's all about markup, people. That's my closing. It's all about markup.
Any audio comments that
I have.
haven't seen?
GoodReader does a whole lot of stuff, and I've only been using it to save me time in grading student essays and taking notes on my own research. If you can talk to Siri, I imagine is you might be able to attach a file or something to it. I just don't know.
But it's not built into the system.
I don't know. I do not know. Like I said, I'm the caveman guy who moves it back and forth with a cable. But
That's crazy.
email works pretty good too. That's all.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep.
Okay, just briefly, one thing I did want to say about Siri, if you do get in the habit of using Siri talking, you just have to tell it the punctuation. So I really like what you said here, exclamation point or period or question. If you just say the punctuation, it does it for you. I don't type text almost ever anymore. I just hit that talk and talk on it, which is why, knock on wood, I haven't killed anybody while I'm driving. Not that I text and drive, but I could in theory because I'm talking and driving, not texting and driving. Okay, so if you want to check out, we will check these out individually as long as we don't have someone. We're going to let the full case checkout take precedence over the individual checkout, but we certainly want to offer these to our instructors. You gotta try it, right? I mean, you can't just, oh, okay, that was a great training, now I'm going to implement it. You need to take it and try it. So if you'd like to check these out, you just contact me, and if I'm not here, then you talk to somebody else and they'll get it going, because we keep them locked up in a hidey hole here in the office. I'm not going to tell anybody where that is, because we don't want you breaking in and stealing. But just contact us and let us know. We'd be happy to check one or all of them out to you. Basically, this case is for charging. I have iCloud Sync turned on, so if you download an app on one, in theory, within, say, 12 hours or so, it should be downloaded on all of them, especially once these are constantly connected to wireless. Because right now, if they don't connect to wireless, then they can't sync. So I have to pull them out, go sign into the wireless, and then they'll eventually download. So it's a little clunky right now, but I think we're working towards being able to do what we need to do. So before we're done, what questions do you guys have, or what brilliant ideas have you come up with while you've been sitting? Because no doubt that's why we do these trainings, is to inspire brilliant ideas. And so I'm sure that there are at least 10 of those.
The only idea I have is you must submit to me a PDF. That way, they're all PDFs. I don't have to convert them, save me a little bit of time. So next semester, I'm going to say everything has to be submitted to PDF. Here's how you do it. So I don't have to worry about, okay, here's 3 Microsoft Word things I convert. Here's 5 of these other things. So just make them do PDFs.
And that's one of the things that I did as Dr. Montgomery was talking. I didn't want you guys to feel like, so I appreciate that he mentioned, I didn't want to feel like we were discouraging the use of Turnitin, because we definitely still want you to use Turnitin, but for grading, I could see how GoodReader would be, or for marking papers, I could see how GoodReader would be a positive.
Do you have trouble with students turning it in another format other than PDF usually?
Well, not if I tell them, here's how you save a PDF, or here's how you print, where you print to a PDF instead of a printer. You just tell them that, and generally they can figure it out. So I've not had too much trouble if I tell them, but I've not forced the case. I think next semester I'm going to force the case. I will not accept anything with PDF documents. Here's why, you'll like it, it's not hard, they should be okay.
And if you guys have issues with students, if they have an older computer or something like that, and they're not able to print to a PDF, Primo PDF is a program that installs as a printer.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Primo PDF, Michelle says that you cannot submit PDFs to turn it in, though.
That's what I was thinking.
All right,
but I
that's
wasn't
fine.
sure.
So
Glad you said
it's a
that.
2-step process. They write it in Word or whatever and submit to turn it in for that, and then they save as a PDF or print to a PDF and then submit it to you.
Right, then you're just checking for plagiarism, but the grading all happens on
Yeah.
GoodReader.
Right, right. Was that what you had your hand raised for, Michelle? Okay, good. Anything else? Any other comments or concerns, questions? Anybody out there in virtual land have a question that you want to share? I see that we have someone named Katie. Katie, I'm not sure who you are, but I'm glad that you joined us. Oh, Katie King. Well, I'm sorry. I was for whatever reason not processing who that was. Thanks, Katie, for joining us too. Okay, well, you guys are free to go. I appreciate you guys coming. If you need to refer back to this, we will post the recording of, what's this program? Adobe Connect. We'll post the recording on the online instructor course under archive training. So, hope you guys have a fantastic week. We sure do appreciate you being here. If you did not sign in, please be sure that you do so before you go.